I never thought I'd find myself in this position, pouring out my life story to strangers on the internet, but here we are. My name is Jake, and I've recently gone through a nightmare I couldn't have imagined in my worst dreams. I'm writing this to share my experience and maybe find some clarity in the chaos. Let me take you back to a few months ago. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for almost 7 years. We met in college, where I was a philosophy major and she was studying social work. She was passionate about her career, particularly her work in death with dignity advocacy, which I admired. Sarah was always the strong-willed type, the kind of person who would fight tooth and nail for what she believed in. I loved that about her, at least I thought I did. But lately, things had felt off. The little quirks that made her who she was began to feel like red flags. She started attending more late-night meetings and workshops. I'd hear her on the phone, her voice suddenly becoming hushed and evasive when I walked into the room. At first, I brushed it off as her being busy and committed to her cause. I mean, we all have our passions, right? But then the excuses began piling up. Jake, I really can't talk tonight. I have a lot of work to do for the upcoming conference, she'd say, waving me off as she buried herself in her laptop. I felt like a ghost in my own home. Our weekend plans started getting canceled. When I'd ask her about it, she'd flip the narrative on me, making me feel guilty for questioning her dedication. I began to notice her texting more, her phone constantly clutched in her hand like it was a lifeline. I even found myself sneaking glances at her screen, but she was quick to shield it from me. Then came the night everything changed. I had come home early from work, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I let myself in, the smell of her favorite pasta sauce wafting through the air. But as I walked into the living room, my heart sank. There was a strange scent in the air, something unfamiliar, and I found her there on the couch, laughter spilling from her lips as she chatted on the phone. The moment she noticed me, her eyes panicked. "Hey babe, you're early," she chirped, trying to mask her surprise with a bright smile, but I could see it, the guilt flickering behind her eyes. Not wanting to blow up unnecessarily, I kept my cool. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just a colleague," she replied too quickly, her tone flat. But there was something about the way her voice wavered that set my instincts ablaze. I let it slide that night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was really wrong. I began to dig a little deeper. My first real clue came a few days later when I found an email on her laptop. It was open on the screen when I went to make coffee. The subject line read, "Can't wait for our weekend together." I felt the blood drain from my face. Rage boiled up inside me, but it was accompanied by a sickening sense of disbelief. I needed to know more. The next couple of days I played it cool, pretending everything was fine while my mind raced. I rifled through her things, and one night I finally found what I was looking for, a series of texts that revealed the truth. "Just finished work, can't wait to see you tonight," one read, followed by heart emojis. Another message spoke of secret meetups and whispered promises. My heart shattered. I confronted her that same night. I demanded to know who you was, but the moment I mentioned the texts, Sarah's demeanor changed completely. She went from defensive to downright indignant, claiming I was invading her privacy. I couldn't believe it. How could she spin this around on me after what she'd done? "Jake, you're overreacting. This is work-related and you know I'm committed to my cause," she snapped, her voice laden with irritation. I was stunned. The lies, the denial, it was all too much. I felt like a fool standing there, grappling with the reality that the woman I loved had been betraying me, and she was too self-centered to even admit it. This was only the beginning of the storm that was about to unfold. I could feel my world crashing down around me, and I had to make a choice about where to go from here. The confrontation didn't end well, to say the least. I stormed out of the house, feeling the heat of anger and humiliation wash over me like a tidal wave. I drove aimlessly, the city streets blurring past me, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. I felt like I was suffocating. After driving around for what felt like hours, I finally pulled over at a small park. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to wrap my head around everything. The image of Sarah with another man, what it meant, was a picture I couldn't shake. It felt surreal, like I was watching an awful movie unfold with me as the unwitting star. I could see it now. her laughing, leaning into him, whispering sweet nothings while I was left in the dark. I thought of our wedding vows, how we promised to love and cherish each other through thick and thin. What did it all mean when she was out there breaking those promises? What hurt the most was the realization that my trust had been shattered, and it felt like a slap in the face that she was so dismissive of my feelings. I thought about my friends, family, and how I would explain this to them. I drove home in a haze, feeling like a stranger in my own life. When I got back, Sarah was still awake, sitting on the couch, her face buried in her phone. She looked up when I walked in, and for a brief second I saw a flicker of concern on her face before it morphed into annoyance. "Where have you been?" she shot, as if I was the one in the wrong. "Out," I replied, my voice flat. I wasn't in the mood to argue, I just wanted answers. I plopped down across from her, adrenaline surging through me. "I found your texts. Who the hell is he?" She feigned innocence, her eyes wide as if she was the victim. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. It's just a work colleague. You're reading too much into this." I felt laughter bubble up inside me, a bitter, hollow kind. "Reading too much into it? You're kidding, right? You think I'm going to buy that after seeing those messages? You're cheating on me, Sarah." Her facade finally cracked and she launched into a frantic defense. "You don't understand. You're so wrapped up in your own insecurities. I'm advocating for people. This is important work, Jake. You wouldn't get it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was more concerned about her work than the fact that our marriage was crumbling before my eyes. "Advocacy doesn't involve sleeping with colleagues. You think I'd just sit back and let you walk all over me?" That night, we argued until dawn, voice levels rising and falling, dredging up emotions that had been buried under the surface for years. Each accusation only deepened the canyon of resentment between us, and I felt like I was losing myself in the chaos. Finally, I threw my hands up in exasperation. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. You've broken my trust, and I don't know how we can come back from this." Her face twisted in anger and defensiveness. "So what? You're just going to throw everything away? You think you're perfect?" I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "This isn't about perfection. This is about loyalty and respect. You don't get to act like I'm the bad guy here." After another sleepless night, I decided I needed time away. From her, I called my brother Mark and told him everything. He listened patiently, offering support without judgment. I needed that. "Just come over," he said. "You can crash at my place for a bit, clear your head." So, with just the clothes on my back, I left our home, the weight of betrayal still heavy in my heart, but the need for clarity driving me forward. I spent the next few days at Mark, trying to regroup and figure out my next move. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face, the way she would smile at me, the laughter we shared. I missed those moments, but I couldn't ignore the gut-wrenching betrayal. I felt lost. As I lay in bed one night staring at the ceiling, I realized something crucial. Whatever happened next, I needed to reclaim my integrity. I wouldn't let her actions dictate my worth. I had to find a way to honor my life choices, no matter how painful this situation had become. But that led me to an even tougher question. What would I do with this newfound clarity? Would I confront her again, try to work things out, or was it time to cut my losses and walk away? The answer was still eluding me, but I knew I had to figure it out fast. I spent days at Mark, feeling like a ghost moving through the motions of life. Each morning, I'd wake up to the sound of his kids playing in the next room, their laughter a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside me. It was comforting to be away from Sarah, but I was still haunted by memories of our life together. I tried to distract myself, going out with Mark, hitting the gym, even binge-watching shows I would have never picked before. But nothing could fill the void left by the betrayal. I found myself scrolling through social media, seeing photos of happy couples, families, and friends. Each one felt like a dagger to my heart. The more I saw, the more I felt isolated in my pain. That's when I decided to reach out to a close friend, Lisa, who had always been a grounding force in my life. I texted her, pouring out my heart and asking if we could meet. "Of course, Jake. Anytime, I'll bring coffee," she replied almost instantly. We met at a small cafe downtown, a favorite spot of ours from college. As I sat across from her, I felt the familiar comfort of her presence wash over me. She listened intently as I recounted the events of the past few weeks, my suspicions, the confrontation, and ultimately the decision to leave. "Jake, this is so tough, but you're doing the right thing by taking time for yourself," she said, her voice steady and reassuring. "You deserve honesty and respect in a relationship. Don't let her manipulation make you doubt your worth." Her words resonated with me. I had been feeling so lost and unsure, but there was a flicker of strength emerging within me. I realized I couldn't let Sarah's betrayal define me. I had to make decisions based on my own values and integrity, not her lies. "Have you thought about what you want to do next?" Lisa asked, tilting her head slightly in concern. I took a deep breath. "Yeah, I have. I think I need to confront her again. We can't keep dancing around the truth. I need closure, and I want to lay everything on the table. I want to hear her side, even if it's just to see if she's capable of genuine remorse." Lisa nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. "Just be careful. Don't let her pull you back into that cycle of guilt and blame. You deserve to be heard without feeling like you're the one at fault." After we finished our coffees, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew I had to face Sarah again, but this time I would be more prepared. I would not allow her to twist the narrative to make it seem like I was the villain in my own story. That evening, I returned to our house, heart pounding. The air felt thick with tension as I stepped inside. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to the TV, but she looked up as I entered. There was a brief moment of silence, an unspoken acknowledgement of everything that had transpired between us. "Jake," she said, her voice tentative, "I didn't expect you back so soon." "I need to talk," I replied, my tone firm but calm. She nodded, her expression shifting from surprise to resignation. "Okay, let's talk." I took a seat across from her, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "I'm not here to fight or yell. I want to understand what happened. You need to be honest with me for once." She shifted slightly, avoiding my gaze. "I don't know what you want me to say." "Yes, I was talking to someone." "Talking? You mean sleeping with someone?" I interrupted, a mix of anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. "You think you can downplay it?" Her eyes flashed with irritation. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jake. It was just complicated. He understands me in ways you don't." "Complicated?" I scoffed, pain lacing my voice. "You think lying and cheating makes things complicated. You made a choice, Sarah, and now I get to deal with the consequences of that choice." She sighed, running a hand through her hair in frustration. "You have to understand, my work is demanding. I never meant for it to go this far." "Then why did you let it?" I pushed, wanting clarity. "Why didn't you come to me with your struggles? We could have worked through anything together." Her silence spoke volumes, and I could see the guilt she was trying to hide. "I don't think you can understand how lonely it gets," she replied finally, her voice softer. "You were so wrapped up in your own world, I felt like I was fading away." "But cheating was your solution?" I asked, my heart breaking all over again. "You didn't even consider talking to me. Did you even try?" She looked down, shame washing over her features. "I thought about it, but I didn't think you'd understand." "Understand what?" I interrupted. "This isn't about me understanding your loneliness. It's about you breaking trust. You betrayed me and you're still trying to play the victim." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw real remorse flicker in them. "I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry, Jake." "It's too late for sorry," I said, my voice trembling. "You've broken something that can't be fixed. I need to know, do you want to salvage this? Or is it just about you now?" There was a long pause, the silence stretching between us thick with unspoken words. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained, and I was desperate for a sign from her that she still cared, that she could recognize the damage she'd caused. "I don't know," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. It was the answer I feared, and it crushed me. In that moment, I felt the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. I realized I was done waiting for her to make sense of her choices. I had to focus on myself and what I wanted moving forward. It was becoming painfully clear that I deserved more than the uncertainty and chaos she had brought into my life. I stood up slowly, my mind racing with the next steps. "I think we both need to figure out where we stand. I can't keep doing this, Sarah. It's tearing me apart." As I walked out of the room, I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but mostly I felt a sense of relief. I was no longer a passive player in this game. I was ready to reclaim my life, regardless of the outcome. What would it look like moving forward? I didn't know yet, but I was determined to find out. The days following that tense confrontation felt surreal. I had laid everything out on the table, but in many ways I was still grappling with the emotional fallout. I returned to Mark's, seeking solace in the familiarity of his home. The kids were oblivious to the turmoil in my life, which was a strange comfort. I watched them play, so carefree and innocent, and it reminded me of the simplicity of life before everything turned upside down. I spent countless hours reflecting on my marriage. I thought about the memories we had created, the dreams we built together, and the foundation we had established. It felt like I was mourning not only the relationship I once had, but also the future I envisioned with Sarah. Each thought was like a wave crashing against the shore, pulling me back and forth between anger, sadness, and a desperate longing for answers. After a few days of this emotional whirlwind, I decided it was time to take action. I needed to figure out what to do next, and I couldn't do that while wallowing in uncertainty. I made an appointment with a therapist, a decision I had been hesitant about initially. I thought it was a sign of weakness, but I realized I needed help processing my feelings. I wanted to emerge from this ordeal stronger and more self-aware, not just healed. The first session was awkward at first. The therapist, Dr. Wilson, was kind and patient, allowing me to speak without interruption. I shared my story, how I discovered Sarah's affair, the breakdown of communication between us, and my struggle to find clarity. He nodded along, occasionally jotting down notes, and I found solace in the way he listened. "Jake, it's normal to feel a sense of loss after such a betrayal," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "You're grieving the relationship you thought you had, the trust that's been broken. It's important to acknowledge those feelings rather than suppress them." I nodded, tears welling up as he spoke. "I feel so lost. I don't know if I should fight for this marriage or just walk away. Part of me still loves her, but I can't shake the feeling of being betrayed." "Love can coexist with pain, but it's crucial to consider what's best for you," he replied. "What does your intuition tell you?" I took a moment to reflect. My intuition was screaming at me to prioritize my own well-being. I realized that I had been so focused on Sarah's feelings, trying to understand her perspective, that I had neglected my own needs. "I think I need to set some boundaries," I finally admitted. "I'm not ready to go back to her just yet, but I want to be clear about what I need to heal." Dr. Wilson smiled, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. That's a solid first step. Setting boundaries is essential in any relationship, especially one that's been compromised. You deserve to take time for yourself and process everything. After that session, I felt lighter. I started to understand that moving forward didn't necessarily mean rushing back to Sarah. I could take my time to heal and figure out what I wanted, whether it was to mend our relationship or walk away for good. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. I spent time with Mark and his family, reconnected with old friends, and even picked up hobbies I had neglected over the years. I found comfort in activities that brought me joy, like hiking and reading. It helped to regain my sense of identity, separate from my marriage. But as the days turned into weeks, the nagging thought of Sarah lingered in the back of my mind. I knew I had to confront her again to clarify our situation, to put an end to the uncertainty that clouded both of our lives. I was ready for a more honest conversation, one where we could both lay our cards on the table. I finally decided to invite her to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral space where we could talk without the emotional weight of our home hanging over us. When the day arrived, my stomach churned with anticipation. I arrived early, needing a moment to calm my nerves. Sarah walked in and my heart raced. She looked different, more vulnerable than I remembered. Her hair fell loosely around her face, and she wore a simple sweater that accentuated her frame. I realized how much I had missed her presence, even if it was tainted by betrayal. "Hey," she greeted me softly as she approached the table. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual. We sat in silence for a moment, each of us unsure of start. Finally, I decided to break the ice. "Thanks for coming. I wanted to talk about us, what we're going to do moving forward." "Okay," she said, her eyes searching mine. "I've had a lot of time to think." Me too, I replied, my heart thumping in my chest. I'm sorry for what I did, Jake. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until it was too late, she began, her voice trembling. I was selfish, and I should have communicated my feelings instead of running to someone else. I know that now. Her words struck a chord within me. Part of me wanted to hear her out to see if there was a path to forgiveness, but another part felt the familiar sting of pain. You say you realize now, but what about before? Did you think about how your actions affected us? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't think it would get out of hand, she admitted, her eyes welling with tears. I was overwhelmed, and instead of reaching out to you, I sought comfort in the wrong place. I never meant to hurt you, I sighed, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. I don't know if I can just forget what happened. It's like a wound that won't heal. I understand, she replied softly. I just want you to know that I'm committed to working on myself, whether or not we can work through this together. I looked at her, searching for any sign of sincerity. I could see the pain in her eyes, the regret she felt, but even that wasn't enough to erase the hurt. What do you want, Sarah? Do you want us to try again? I want to make things right, but I know it starts with giving you space if you need it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just can't imagine my life without you. Her vulnerability was disarming, and for the first time I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack, but I had to remind myself of my own needs. I need time, I said firmly. I need to figure out what I want without being influenced by your emotions or guilt. I hope you can understand that. I do, she replied, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll respect your space, but I want you to know that I'm willing to fight for us if you'll let me. As we parted ways that day, I felt a mix of emotions, confusion, sadness, and a flicker of hope. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I felt a sense of closure. I was taking control of my own narrative, and that was something I had almost forgotten how to do. Whatever came next, I had to focus on honoring myself first. It was time to explore where my own path would lead. After that conversation with Sarah, I needed time to process everything. I returned to Mark, feeling a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. I was grateful for his support and the space to think without distractions. Each day that passed brought a mix of clarity and confusion, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had been turned upside down. I started journaling, pouring out my thoughts and feelings onto the pages. Writing became a form of therapy for me. I'd sit at the dining table with a cup of coffee, letting my emotions spill out in ink. I wrote about the pain of betrayal, the love I still had for Sarah, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. It was cathartic, and I found solace in the rhythm of my pen gliding across the paper. One evening, as I sat in Mark's cozy living room, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. I needed to focus on rebuilding my own life, regardless of what happened with Sarah. That didn't mean I had to completely close the door on our relationship, but it did mean I had to prioritize my own well-being. I reached out to friends I hadn't spoken to in ages. I planned hikes, game nights, and even a weekend camping trip. It felt refreshing to surround myself with people who cared about me and reminded me of the joys outside of my tumultuous marriage. Each moment spent laughing and connecting with others was a reminder of the life I still had, even if it felt overshadowed by the chaos at home. About a month later, I decided to reach out to Sarah again. I knew I could keep ignoring her presence in my life. I wanted to meet and discuss where we stood, but this time it would be on my terms. I texted her, suggesting we meet at a park where we used to have picnics when we were dating. When I arrived, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I watched as Sarah approached, her expression a blend of hope and apprehension. She looked different, more grounded, as if the time apart had forced her to reflect on her actions. "Hey," I greeted her, my heart racing. "Hey," she responded softly, taking a seat on the bench beside me. We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of nature surrounding us, the rustling leaves, distant laughter from children playing, the gentle chirping of birds. It felt peaceful, yet the tension between us was palpable. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I started, choosing my words carefully. "I've realized how crucial it is for me to focus on myself right now. I can't ignore my own needs anymore." She nodded, her gaze fixed on the ground. "I understand that, Jake. I've been reflecting too. I know I hurt you deeply and I'm truly sorry for that. I can't change the past, but I want to work on myself and become a better person, whether that means being with you or just being friends. Her honesty struck a chord. I could see the sincerity in her eyes and it made me want to believe her, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh and I didn't want to rush into anything. I appreciate that, Sarah, but I need to be clear. I can't just jump back into what we had before. Trust has to be rebuilt and that takes time. I'm willing to do the work, she replied earnestly. I know it won't happen overnight. I want to show you that I'm committed to making this right, even if it takes months or years. I took a deep breath, processing her words. I think we have to start from scratch. We can't pretend everything is fine just because we want it to be. I need to see that you're serious about facing the consequences of your actions. Absolutely, she said, her voice resolute. I'm ready to face whatever it takes, Jake. I don't want to lose you. In that moment, I realized that while I still had feelings for her, I wasn't ready to give her my heart completely. I had to protect myself, and I needed to prioritize my own healing. Let's take it slow, I suggested. We can start by being friends and rebuilding a foundation of trust. I need time to see if I can truly forgive you. Sarah nodded, a mix of relief and determination etched on her face. I'll do whatever it takes, Jake. I just hope you can see that I'm trying. We spent the afternoon talking, sharing our thoughts and fears. It felt good to communicate openly, and for the first time in a while I felt a glimmer of hope. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I was willing to take those steps cautiously. As we parted ways, I felt lighter. I had taken control of my narrative, and while I wasn't fully committed to rekindling our romance, I was open to the possibility of a new beginning. In the following weeks, we began to rebuild our connection. We met for coffee, went for walks, and shared our thoughts about life and our respective journeys. It felt different this time, more authentic, as if we were both aware of the fragility of our relationship. I still had moments of doubt and anxiety about whether I was making the right choice, but I reminded myself to focus on the present. I was learning to honor my own choices and prioritize my well-being, no matter where the journey would lead. Yet, a part of me was still wary. Could we truly overcome the betrayal and create something new? Would Sarah be able to demonstrate the change she promised? Only time would tell, but I was committed to exploring this path, however uncertain it may be. As weeks turned into months, I found myself growing stronger, more confident in my decisions. I was determined to move forward, whether it meant embracing a new life without Sarah or rekindling a deeper connection. Whatever the outcome, I was beginning to understand the importance of integrity, not just in my relationships but within myself. And that realization was the most empowering choice I could make. As the months passed, I found myself navigating the complexities of my evolving relationship with Sarah. We had established a fragile truce, one built on mutual understanding and a commitment to honesty. But even as we grew closer, I couldn't shake the lingering doubts that danced at the edges of my mind. The scars of betrayal were still fresh, and I was acutely aware of how easily trust could be shattered again. I continued my sessions with Dr. Wilson, finding comfort and clarity in our discussions. I learned to identify my own needs and set healthy boundaries. I became more attuned to my emotions, recognizing when I felt threatened or insecure. This newfound awareness empowered me to communicate openly with Sarah, which helped us navigate the complexities of rebuilding our relationship. One evening, after a particularly insightful therapy session, I called Sarah and asked her to meet me at our favorite restaurant. The place held memories of happier times, and I hoped it would provide the right atmosphere for our conversation. As I walked into the restaurant, my heart raced with anticipation. I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her eyes lighting up as she saw me. She looked beautiful, dressed simply yet elegantly, and I felt a rush of nostalgia. It reminded me of the connection we once had before everything spiraled out of control. "Hey," I greeted her, taking a seat across from her. "Hi, Jake. I've been looking forward to this," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "Me too," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "I wanted to talk about our progress and where we stand." She nodded, her expression serious. "I've been reflecting on everything as well. I know it's been a long road, but I truly appreciate the time we've spent together since everything happened." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship, too. I want to acknowledge that we've made significant strides, but I still feel a sense of hesitation. I'm not entirely sure if I can fully trust you right now. Her eyes softened with understanding. I completely get that. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I know I have a long way to go. I'm committed to showing you that I'm serious about making things right. Can you tell me how you plan to do that?" I asked, genuinely curious. I've been working on myself. Through therapy, focusing on the reasons behind my actions. I want to understand why I made those choices and how I can prevent it from happening again. She explained, her voice earnest. I want to communicate better and be more present for us. Hearing her talk about personal growth gave me hope. It showed that she was willing to put in the effort, even if it didn't guarantee immediate trust. I appreciate that, Sarah. I think we need to continue taking things slowly. I want to see you putting in the work consistently. I promise I will, she said, her voice steady. I'm not expecting everything to be perfect overnight. I just want the chance to show you that I can be better. As we continued our conversation, I felt a shift within myself. I was no longer just the victim of betrayal. I was reclaiming my narrative. I had the power to choose my path, whether it involved staying in this relationship or moving on. But it was in that moment of vulnerability that I realized something significant. I still cared for Sarah. I remembered the love we shared, the laughter and the dreams we had built together. I wanted to believe in the possibility of a new beginning, one rooted in honesty and integrity. "I think we can keep moving forward," I said finally, my heart pounding. "But we have to be honest with each other every step of the way. I need to feel safe in this relationship again." "I promise I'll be open," she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. "I won't hide anything from you anymore." We left the restaurant that night feeling lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. It wasn't a magic fix, but it felt like a step in the right direction. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but I was willing to walk it alongside her, provided we both committed to making it work. In the following months, we continued to navigate the complexities of rebuilding our relationship. We faced challenges, moments of insecurity, times when doubts crept in, but we learned to communicate openly. I started to see small changes in Sarah, and I recognized my own growth as well. I was learning to trust my instincts and hold space for my own emotions. One day, as we hiked up a familiar trail, the sun shining brightly above us, I paused to take in the view. It was breathtaking, and it felt symbolic of the journey we had undertaken. I turned to Sarah and smiled, feeling a renewed sense of hope. "Look how far we've come," I said, taking her hand. "No matter what happens, I'm grateful for our journey." "Me too," she replied, squeezing my hand gently. "I promise I'm committed to making this work." As we stood there, surrounded by nature's beauty, I realized that no matter the outcome of our relationship, I had grown stronger through this experience. I understood the importance of honoring my own choices, of fighting for my integrity, and of embracing the journey, no matter how uncertain it may be. Life is a series of choices, and I was no longer afraid to choose for myself. Whether Sarah and I created a new chapter together or ultimately parted ways, I was ready to face whatever came next with resilience and authenticity. I had learned that endings deserved integrity, and that was the most empowering lesson of all.